The worst state of being is remembering the future. Think about that for a moment. Grief can leave us trapped in a loop, clinging to what could have been and what we thought we'd have. But what if there's a way to break free and rediscover yourself, even after loss? Whether you're grieving the loss of a partner, a life role, or even a part of your identity, my conversation with Barry Selby today is sure to help you. We're diving into practical steps to heal, find joy again, and rebuild your life, especially if you're over 50. So if you're ready to take that first step to reclaiming your joy, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
In relationship, when we have breakups and we go through that loss and that grief of actually losing a partner, we think that over time we'll be okay, but all it does, it just numbs us. Because one of the challenges of being in grief and having to go through a breakup is you feel alone. There's nobody there. So if we spend the time hunched over looking down, it's hard to feel joyful. So if we shut down and we isolate, we just become hermits in a way. So breaking that cycle, get out in the world and interacting, because it's a way of getting your body and your heart engaged again, even when your mind's not ready to do so.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here once again at Jill Collins Connections, and I have a repeat guest. Third time, because he is so incredibly awesome. Barry Selby, masterful relationship expert and guru, best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and podcaster, as well as spiritual guide. You're going to love hearing from Barry. I know if you've heard his other two interviews I did with him, our conversations, you're just going to love this one too. We're going to talk today about grief and what it really means to us. I heard something, Barry, recently that just really touched me. It was a phrase where it said, the worst state of being is remembering the future. Think about that, everyone. The worst state of being is remembering the future. And so many times when we've had loss or some kind of thing in our life that has left us feeling like it pivoted or altered our future, we feel those pangs of grief whenever we recall something that will never happen in our lives. And so I want to start off there. Let's talk about that, Gary. Barry, welcome again to the stage, to my channel. I'm so excited to have you.
It's back, yeah. That's funny. This conversation came up when we finished the last episode about I've done the work with grief, both myself and with clients, because the spiritual work as a counselor, it comes up a lot. And there's other places I know about this too, because I have connections with different widow and widowed groups as well in my coaching. Grief is one of these things that isn't talked about very much. And yet it's such a vital piece of the journey, because really, simplest way to put it in my own words really is grief is where we're missing love.
Mm.
Because oftentimes grief is where someone we loved or something we loved, it was taken away from us or we lost. And so we feel like the love's gone as well. And I have a few quotes I'll bring up during the conversation, but one of the quotes, which I was so surprised when I heard it was, the quote was something I don't remember what it exactly was, is what is grief if not love persevering?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What is grief if not love persevering?
And that's the thing, is because it's almost like I said about I said in another context about how you can't get angry about things you don't care about. If you don't care about it, you won't get angry. And same thing about grief. If you didn't have love there, you wouldn't grieve when it went away. And so it's a recognition or a confirmation that there was love there in the first place. So one of the challenges, but also one of the blessings, is to know there was love in the first place. But the challenge with grief is that we feel the loss rather than the love.
Yes. Yes. I get that because I know when I lost my husband 8 years ago, I went through a lot of different healing experiences. One of the things that I recalled that I did doing this Vipassana, this 10-day silent meditation retreat, was I was going through all of this. It seemed like a flash of movies just going through my mind across just everything I experienced, and all of the times, the experiences we had that were such great experiences, such great memories. But it was so painful because I couldn't feel joy or happiness or appreciation for any of it because it felt so painful. It felt like it was lost because I would never have it again, or I don't have it anymore. And it was such a revelation to me and an awakening that I went through this healing journey and experience where now I can truly look at it and go, gosh, I'm so grateful for those moments, versus going on a trip back to Greece after we were in Greece once. It was miserable because I was feeling so much pain and agony because of not having that and remembering the past and how I won't have that anymore, or wasn't the same experience or whatever. So totally get where you're going with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a different personal experience. Lost both my parents over the years, and I was close to my mother and my father. And when she went first, it was much more of a loss and a pulling away energy for me than it was when my dad passed away. Emotional connection was different. And so in a way, I got to contrast the two. And it really wasn't clear about how much more love I had for my mother than I did for my father, that when she passed away, it hit me much harder. And in fact, is when she got sick, because I saw her when she was in decline, where I knew she was basically terminal. I knew it was like it was going to be the end of the road. And so I went back and saw her back in England. And when I came home, I was more grief stricken than I was when she passed away. I was almost like a relief because I knew that she was at peace at that point. And when my dad passed away, it was like over a period of time, he was just shutting down over the years because, first of all, he didn't think he would outlive her. So he was in resentment at some point after she passed away because he didn't want to be left behind. And so all his own stuff came up. And I don't know his actual grief journey because I wasn't there much of it because he was back in England. But I sense with him that, and also because it's the English stoic male energy, he was like stuffing it all down and pretending to be okay. But when he passed away, it's almost like he finally gave up. Like he finally gave up the physical need to be here because he never did anything. Those 9 years after my mother passed away, he was really just counting the days. He wasn't
He was surviving.
doing anything. Yeah. So he basically was waiting to check out, I guess is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
But
something I really want to accentuate here for midlife women and anyone watching this is I think we go through a compounding of grief. Sometimes so many things stack at this stage in our lives that we feel like there's no hope and we give up. And I really want everyone to understand how it's never too late and we can always start back and we can always reinvent ourselves. We can always come up with new ways to feel good again. And nothing is permanent, nothing's forever. These feelings that we have right now of grieving and feeling lost and feeling like hopeless, they pass. They really do pass. I can testify to that. And it's not just time heals all wounds. We can actually, there are ways to do it where you don't have to wait for just time, that you
well,
can actually, there's strategies that I know we're going to talk about today. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And if you are, consider subscribing. 93% of you that listen to this podcast regularly have not yet subscribed. If you like this channel, can you do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe button? It helps this channel more than you know. And the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. Thank you.
that quote, that statement, "Time heals all wounds." I have a point to make about that because I have a bit of a challenge with that. Because talk about in relationships when people get over the breakups, the time heals all wounds. It doesn't actually heal all wounds; it numbs them.
Yes.
What time
Which one
does,
bet?
it is. It's almost like it pacifies us. What you're saying about doing things, taking participation to actively move through the process, is what really resolves and heals those things. Time doesn't do it on its own. So when you say time heals,
Mm.
say, yeah, but because for me, in relationship, when we have breakups and we go through that loss and that grief of actually losing a partner, not necessarily losing them because they died, but losing because they're not with them anymore, because that's another level of grief. We think that over time we'll be okay, but all it does, it just numbs us. We talked about this in the last episode, I think, or the time before, that we don't actually really have a healing process when we just don't do anything. So you have to do something to rebuild, to restore. And yeah, as you were saying, also, as you go through time after the grief, you can start seeing some of those things in a different light where you see them from a more whole place and you can be very grateful and joyful, even though the person's no longer there, you have fond memories rather than grieving memories. And so you've changed your perception of what happened.
I agree. I agree. And I'm thinking it's like actively moving through the process, like really being intentional. And we'll talk about some steps there in a minute. But some of the things that come to mind right now are being that you're a relationships expert, I think it's important to focus on relationships and the fact that your father and what happened with your mother and all of that is using that as a great example of what happens a lot of times. And let's talk about what things do you think that we grieve the most when we're in this stage in life? Because I think for me, it could be loss of a partner. It could be loss of the empty nest syndrome with the kids leaving, change in career, body image, bodies change, how we feel, our hormones. Or it could be a lot of different things. And one that came to mind for me as a result of some of that is we feel like it's too late. We are grieving loss of opportunities. I used to be able to do this, or it's too late for me. I can't have the career I had before I had kids, or before I was with my partner, or any of those things. Or now I can't attract a partner that I want like I did 10 years ago when I looked better and I was younger. All these false narratives that we have about what we think of ourselves, and it really gets us stuck. And so how do you feel about that?
I'm in the same boat in a sense. I've definitely experienced those things of changing, getting older. I'm not like I was when I was 20, so I understand that feeling exactly. But what I recognize also is that, and I watch myself do this internally, is when I have a perception about being, like I've been single quite a while, looking for women I'm attracted to, there are certain looks that I do find attractive, and it's not age-based. However, it tends to be age relevant, where a certain look still works and certain look doesn't work because of where I am inside. And I also notice reality check. I'm this age, therefore I should move my criteria up a little bit or whatever adjustments. So I recognize that feeling inside. At the same time, I do what I can to take care of myself. That's one thing I mentioned. It's funny how I keep getting interesting conversations coming up about what I can do that will either maintain or improve my health at this age. And part of it is and this started during the pandemic. I got I had cabin fever during the pandemic. Not I had COVID too a few times, but I had cabin fever. I need to get out of the house, and everything was closed. But I found some local hiking trails in the local hills where I started hiking, and that was 4.5, 5 years ago, and I haven't stopped. I've done it every day since. So that morning exercise, which I've started doing, is almost it's a meditation for me in a way. Is what I use as a means to stay on top of my own health regimen, so to speak. I do other things as well, exercise and fitness things too, because it's easy to give up. That's the challenge when especially we get older in years. We don't think we can, so we say we don't even try to find out. So
Mm,
some things, and it's funny because one of my podcast co-hosts, because I have two podcasts I co-host, one of my podcast co-hosts, she volunteers riding horses. They do within a
mm,
city. And her friend that she does it with, who runs this place, is in her 80s. And she says she's more vital than any woman she's ever met because she's so into what she loves doing. And she's so joyful. And her service work she does, because she has the horses she helps these kids with and special needs kids, fills her up. That's what makes her feel alive and joyful. The age thing's an interesting thing we play with because, especially with the dating apps, just for those people who are on the dating apps, because they put you into a bucket based upon your age, not based upon who you are. Oftentimes it's a mismatch. And so we really need to start looking, I feel, like what the whole thing is, what the whole story is, because we can look at looks alone, and being men, frankly, we do tend to look at looks rather than who the person is. That's where we're wired. It is a matter of recognizing that some things we have to let go of. So is a certain grieving, getting back to the original topic, of we won't be with a 20-year-old anymore, as much as some people try. But
mm.
also, you're someone who's still 20-year-old inside in terms of their energy, their vitality, their freedom, their joy can be a lot younger than their chronological age. And that's the thing is we oftentimes believe we're as old as the number on a birth certificate versus as old as age you want to feel and play and enjoy. Yes, obviously you don't do crazy things when you're older because you might hurt yourself, but also don't give up on everything, you know?
Yeah. Don't give up on everything. It's so true. It's never too late. And I think we always have this opportunity to decide, to change and to transform, to reinvent. And
Mhm.
I can hear people saying, yeah, it's easy for you to say. I think that if we step back a bit and look at what actually happens in the process, I can describe for myself moments and where I've been in a relationship where I broke up with someone a few years ago, and I just was self-loathing. I was isolating. I was numb. I didn't have any ambition, any desire to do anything. I'd sit around and just watch YouTube videos and play games on my phone all day. When I thought, I'm going to get up in a minute, I'm going to go do something. And all of a sudden it was the end of the day before I knew it. And I just had no drive. And it took a while. And I thought, what could I have done differently? What did I need at that moment? And I know today, like you said, which is so key, is that changing your state. Like there's very simple things of physically moving the body. And I'm the first one to say, I hate that when people say stuff like that. Go for a walk. But it really does work. And what I started doing just a little bit here and there is I would just get up and jump up and down a few times. It
Mhm.
sounds so, but just jumping up and down, sitting up straight and taking literally putting your head back alone and breathing deep, because we're sitting like this a lot, especially on our phones, and we're doing stuff and we're not getting any oxygen into our body. And it just keeps that kind of that feeling of just sedation. We're sedating ourselves, just not sedating, but just sitting in that state of just, there's no energy coming in. And so when we merely sit up and take that deep breath, it changes how we feel. And then jumping up and down, being a reformer, whatever it is, dancing if you like it. Sometimes it's even a struggle to do that. I get it. But just trying it once and even committing to do it for just a minute every day, just something to move the body, it changes, it literally chemically alters our system to have more drive, to feel more energy, and to have that physically. So I think that's really important. I'm glad you brought up nature, because I think a lot of people are in that state, but It's that
Mhm.
this isolation that we were exposed to for so long, maybe some years, some are still doing it. I know I've been in that state of just, I don't go out as much as I used to. I don't interact with people as much as I used to. And I can tell how it impacts me emotionally and psychologically. And I'm charged up when I'm around people because it's like, oh my God, I'm around people. This is so great. And I forgot how great it was when I started doing it again. But to say all that is that I think starting from there was so important. And then just taking a risk, like choosing one thing a day that you want to accomplish, right? It's just that what is it that we can start back and do again after we've gone through that process? Is what are some things that you would recommend if someone just went through a breakup or a loss or just feeling that dull, lifeless feeling in life that they can start right now, something easy?
Easy. Just to go back for a second, you're talking about with putting sitting up straight. One of the challenges we don't always recognize is that physiology dictates our energy and dictates our emotions. So if we spend the time hunched over looking down, it's hard to feel joyful because the natural
Mm,
state down is generally depression and shutting down. So if you want to change your state, just as you said, like stepping out, if you just put your head up and put your shoulders back and look up, even if you're outside somewhere, just stop for a moment and do that. It will start changing your emotional states. You'll feel differently. And ideally, you'll feel better. So that's one thing you can do right off the bat. The second one I recommend highly, which is something I've been doing for quite a while too recently, especially since since the pandemic, is find someone to volunteer. I have a passion for service in my life. It's part of my way of life. I do it every week. But I started about a year ago. A friend of mine didn't know he was going to drag me into something I love doing so easily. But I just got involved with this group that basically distributes grocery boxes to needy families. And it's not something on my radar, but it showed up. So if you have an idea you want to do service, there are so many things out there, whether it's an animal shelter or midnight mission to go down and feed the homeless. There are so many things you can do because when you do that, what happens is, first of all, you're doing something with your time, so you're busy. Second thing you do, you discover that there are people out there who need help and you don't, so you feel better. It's a cheat in a way because it makes you feel superior in a way, but not from a place of I'm better than them, but I can give to them. And so service is such a key, I think, for life in general. Especially if you're in a relationship, do it with your partner. It's so good. But if you're alone, first of all, it's a good way to shift the energy. But two, you never know who you might meet when you're doing it too.
true that. I always say I haven't done it lately, but I used to wake up every morning and say, "Who can I help today?"
Mm,
I
nice.
keep that in the back of my mind, and it's not like it's a big project or I've got to go call a shelter, which I love the idea of going to a shelter or doing something. But sometimes it's just that casual reminder that we're walking down the street or we go to the grocery store, we interact with anyone. It's a smile. It's a
Yeah.
saying hello to someone. I walk down the street here in Buenos Aires and I see people just looking down or they're not paying attention. They don't see anything. And it's just, hey, how you doing? To be seen and to recognize someone. It's amazing the charge that you get when you do that and that they actually go, oh, wow. And they feel good. And you can see it. The transfer of energy between two people when we do that is powerful. And your
Absolutely.
outline and just say, here are my groceries. How much is it? It's, hey, how's your day going today? And it just surprises people when you do that and recognize them, and it makes you feel
This,
good.
that's the thing is that, as you said before as well, it's like when we go through a breakup, we shut down and we isolate and we just become hermits in a way.
Mhm.
So breaking that cycle, doing something like you said, to get out in the world and interacting, yes, obviously difference depending if you're an introvert, extrovert, whatever is going on for you. But to be among people can tend to give you a sense of participation where you're no longer alone. Because one of the challenges of being in grief and having go through a breakup is you feel alone. There's nobody there. But you can, I'm going to say replace, but you can shift the energy by going out somewhere where you can be amongst people, whether it's a crowd, an event. You may not feel jazzed up by doing it. So I wouldn't necessarily go to a concert or something like that, very celebratory, because you may not feel that way, but do something out in the world where it's like grocery stores or like it is going to the animal shelter. Because the other thing with the animal shelters, you play with the animals, you're going to feel love.
Yeah,
That's a cheat as well, because it's a way of getting your body and your heart engaged again, even when your mind's not ready to do.
absolutely, absolutely. I always love your advice. It's so good, and I want to tell everyone right now before I forget that Barry is available. He does amazing sessions. There's a in the show notes here. You'll see a free relationships quiz readiness assessment, which is great for singles. You can also book a 20-minute discovery session that's free with him if you want to just talk and to him and see if working with him is right for you and if you're right for him. And then the other thing he's doing is he's doing this really cool thing till the end of the year. This is December. We're taping this. So end of December 2024. He's offering, which he's never done before, a 1 hour session with him It's a really extensive deep dive coaching session where you'll get to discover a lot of things about yourself and find ways to really having a sense of awareness and things. So he's a great coach. I highly recommend him. I've worked with him and I think he's amazing. And then he also will take that 1 hour and apply it to any of his 3 or 6 month packages. So I really recommend that. So definitely check it out if you're interested there. And also he has a great best-selling book, 50 Ways to Love Your Lover, Powerful
Mhm.
Principles for Passionate and Richly Rewarding Relationships. So let's definitely check that out too. The links are all in the show notes.
Thank
So
you.
you're welcome. Anyway, getting back to the conversation, something else that occurs to me, I love this thing about first, it's like moving our bodies, it's giving back. And to me, it's also the third one would be getting in a community, finding other people that you align with that are going to up-level you, which is something that I do really well. I have a midlife women's group that I work with, and we meet every week on Zoom. And we're bringing in guests from time to time from the show to work with us as well and to talk with us. So you get a behind the scenes after party with some of my guests, and Barry's agreed to be one of those. So definitely check that out. It's in the show notes. But I think community is so important at this stage in our lives because our friends become, I don't know, especially since the pandemic, my circles got smaller. I don't know about you. Did you
Yeah.
find?
It's changed. It has changed, and it's not. Let's be transparent. My circles weren't massive before the pandemic either. So it wasn't like suddenly got smaller. They just evolved. One of the challenges also on this journey is because when we grow and evolve, our circles change as well. But secondly, as soon as grief, people will pass away. They leave. They move away. So our circles will keep changing. And the challenge is if we don't do anything, we end up alone like an island in the middle of the ocean. We're not connected. So to keep creating or building or joining communities is a wise choice to do because you don't know what's going to stay the same, what's going to keep changing. And that's the thing is the best thing you can do to take care of yourself is to make sure you're participating in life in some way, shape or form that is additive so you can be making a difference.
Yep. Community. And then the fourth one I was going to say is purpose, having a sense of purpose and a cause. It could be that charity idea. It could be what is your life's mission, something you put off in the past. It's something we're grieving. We're going to go back to grief because I think that's something that I was thinking about earlier is a lot of things that one of the things we do grieve is this, like I said, the thing about career or dreams unfulfilled. It's that what are things that we dreamt about and we say now, oh God, I'm too old for that. I can't do that now. Or I've gone through a divorce and I don't know if I can have that partner now. I'm not the way, like we talked about earlier, the way I used to be. And so it's really finding that passion again. And how do we find that purpose? What came to me recently in a meditation was I need to find something to love and nurture. I thought that was really powerful. I was thinking, wow, I don't have children of my own. So it was like a lot of people have this big why. They say, what's your why? And I always thought, what's my why? I don't really have a why. I don't know. And so what came to me in meditation was find something to love and to nurture, something or someone. And I thought, that's pretty powerful. And seeing it, so I already have my community, but I wasn't seeing it in a way of loving and nurturing. I was seeing it as more of a way to give. But when I used the word nurture, I heard the word nurture, it was like, that's cool. And that gives me this feeling of validating my existence. Like it's this purpose. It's this feeling of like impact. And it shifted for me. So I think it's that number 4, be finding our purpose and something we can call our own. That's our legacy. And it doesn't have to be huge. It can just be, even if something is just offering support to our children that we already have and but reframing it in our mind in a way that it's not an obligation or it's an opportunity. And I really love that.
I'm curious to know if you found what you're going to be nurturing, if you got something in mind or if you're still looking into
Yeah,
that.
I think so. I think that's relationships. It's women. It's really women that are in the stage right now because I'm meeting so many women lately that are just exactly what I described. The state of, I used to be able to do that, or I don't know, no one sees me anymore. I just am life's good. I'm so grateful. A great big one is I live for my kids and they're in their 30s and 40s and they have families already. And they're waiting for their kids to give them a sense of purpose. And a lot of times they can engage, but I think there's also this sense of it's so dependent upon circumstance of other people. And it's how can I create? I want women to really be able to create something that they can show up and wake up for every day. And it's not dependent upon my daughter didn't call me today, or they don't need me, or this or that. And it really can, because it can put us on a roller coaster when we're depending on even a partner in a relationship. Some days they're up, some days they're not. I know I'm up, some days I'm not. Sometimes I'm a taker and sometimes I'm a giver. I need days I'm taking and some days I'm like give because I have so much overflow. And since that's a roller coaster that we want to try to stay away from, is really, I want women to find this thing that they just feel like is something that just lights them up, that they have control over. And I want to go back real quick as I say that, because there was something I made a note about is I think a lot of times we have this thing where after we lose a partner, or whether it's death or divorce, is that we feel like life seems stable before and now it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
And found that the opposite is actually true. You get to create a life filled with stability and freedom on your own. And I help women create what that looks like. It's, what does that look like for you? What is it that you really want, where you wake up and you feel blissful every day because you actually have more control over it than living within parameters of a relationship that seemed quasi-stable, but it really was, there were guidelines, there were conditions, and go from there, versus let me react to what the people that I'm around are, that I'm living for, so to speak, what they're up to and what they're going to do. And then I react to it, versus I get to be cause in the matter.
So this is perfect timing as well, because I'm actually writing an article I have a business group I'm part of, and I've written 4 articles. I'm on my 5th one, talking about who approves of you. And it's about self-approval versus people pleasing. Because what you're talking about here, in the same sense, is that if we are the grandparent or the parent of kids, there's a tendency to want to maybe wait for them to do something. But the problem is we're then being in a codependent relationship with them, because we're no longer choosing for ourselves. And what you said about how when you are on your own again after a divorce or a loss of a partner, how it's more stable is so true, because the reality is there's only one person you have to count on, which is yourself. If you count on somebody else and they disappoint you, they don't do what you want, or they do what you want, but you don't like the way they did it, you end up being upset. It's like, why? And the challenge we have with grief, back to that for a second, is sometimes we spend a lot of years in resentment of our partner. And when they pass away, we feel regret because we didn't voice it, we didn't heal it, we didn't do anything about it. Again, because you're on your own, there's stability there. So that's when you can do the work to do the inner healing. So grief does include, and by the way, I know we'll talk about this for us as well. Grief is a multi-step experience, but it's not a sequential step experience. And what I mean is that there are, according to different teachers, 5 to 7 steps for grief, but they don't work in sequence, and the duration doesn't make any sense either. But things that show up in grief include regret, include loss, sense of loss. They include anger, they include resentment, they include other things too. And it's part of the spectrum. But the truth is that grief is something that you can't stop. This one will say this as well. Is some people think, I'll just stuff it down, I'll be fine, I'll get over it. It's like, truth is, when grief happens, your best job is to give it space to happen. Because grief will, how can I say this, find its way into your life if you don't do something about it, if you don't make it happen automatically or create space for it. So grief is potent. There are different books out there you can recommend as well. But the thing about grief is that it's something that is unique to each person, how it happens, because like the ocean, you can't predict the waves, you can't predict how long they're going to be, you can't predict how big they're going to be. They keep changing. And grief's steps do the same thing.
I love that. You have to give it space to happen and you stop it. I know I tried. First year or two, I was like, I'm good. I got this. Where's the next guy? Hello, where are you? So wasn't ready. But I just stuffed it all down like, all right, that was a chapter, closed book. Next, what do we got going on here? It was so bizarre. I can look at it now and laugh about it. But at the time, I was clinging to this. I've got to have back, which I didn't realize, have back what I had. I've got to recover as quickly as possible. I don't want to feel this. And something that occurred to me too, through my experience of being divorced many years before and then being widowed the second time, is that I was going through this. It's embarrassing a little bit, but everyone grieves differently. So no judgment, please. But I was going through multiple partners, just like quickly, like trying to find someone. And it occurred to me that death and divorce both feel the same in the nervous system.
Mhm.
They both like rejection. And it was this, I needed this sense of validation, just like when someone dumps us and we feel like we have to go find someone to feel good about ourselves right away, that's what I was doing. And I didn't even realize it. And the body doesn't know the difference. The nervous system doesn't know the difference. So sometimes it's being aware of these things. And that's why working with a coach or working with someone who's gone through this process is really helpful, because it can help you find hacks and ways that maybe you're not seeing, and you can recover quicker and have freedom. I'll have a little bit more freedom and healing faster that I wish I knew at the time. But it's just, it's this whole thing about like I was going through that just let me stuff it. Let me find a way to move on so quickly. So this idea of grief shows up and you can't control it. Let me tell you, it's waves. All of a sudden you're just with somebody watching a movie or something happening, or a feeling just shows up, and it's knowing how to manage it. So my question is, when you say give it space to happen, what does that look like?
Simply, it's be okay. It's not judge what happens, first of all, because grief
Mm.
does what it does. So if one of us is let it happen, like you're saying, it's like surprise out of the blue, it happens. Part of us is we like, can't do it here, I have to shut it down and go somewhere else. Well, grief doesn't wait in that sense. When it's coming up, it's coming up. And if you need to explain yourself at some point, fine. But the main thing is be honest with yourself. If you're feeling something, let it out, let it flow. So having the space and letting it happen means that you don't judge what comes through. It's almost like you say permission granted basically to yourself in a way, to the grief. So it has its way, because that's really a key, because the grief, as I said before, doesn't want to stop. And so the only way for grief to dissipate is to be let through. It's like when you burst the banks of the river, the water's going to come through, and you can try to stop it, but it's going to keep trying to come through. And so you let it go to its own level and it'll finally stop. And grief does the same thing. It's that flow that happens where you all come to peace when it's done, not when you're ready.
I love that. Yeah. So I love that permission granted, and you allow the pain of the grief to flow through. And it's when you said no judgment, I love that. And is this, for me, it's also, the people used to say, be kind to yourself.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what does that mean? Go take a bath? What is it like? Get a massage? I don't know what that means. And what I realize now, what they meant, some of the coaches I worked with said this, is that it's allowing yourself the no judgment. But on a day when I did have those, like sitting around and doing nothing but eating and drinking or doing whatever and not getting anything done or feeling like I didn't do, is wow, that's okay. Wow, look at that. Okay, that's just a process. What am I feeling about that? And allowing that pain, it's okay. It's no judgment that I did the things I did to go out and drinking and socializing with friends constantly and just being so busy I couldn't see straight. So I didn't, everybody said, oh, stay busy. Let's take her out. Let's go to lunch. Let's go to dinner. Let's have drinks. Let's let's go to the movies. And it was like a constant, like my schedule was so full. I was like a social butterfly,
Hmm.
and it was a numbing process. And it really, it was, I'm grateful for it in a way, but I'm also, I can see that it slowed down the process for me because I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to feel, it wasn't coming out. And it wasn't until later I had to say, okay, wow, okay, I'm sitting with this. And everybody said, just, you have to like process your grief. I'm like, fuck that. I don't need that. I'm tough. I suck it up, buttercup. Come on. These people who are sitting here, I'm like, oh, please, come on. Just let's go next. Come on. And I didn't understand it. And now I do. But at the time, I just couldn't get people who had to cry it out and shit. I'm thinking like, what's wrong with you? And I was wrong. I was wrong. So
That's
it's what it was.
yeah. That's the thing about grief, though. Again, is it has its own way of doing it, and it's not the same. It's different for every person. And they've been in spiritual counseling. There's definitely a viewpoint I can hold where I see like that. And just to go woo for a second, is that our
Yeah.
human experience is a temporary blip on our experience in the universe itself. We are not, those people who don't agree with me, I understand if you don't believe this, but I believe we don't stop when our physical body dies. And
I
also I
agree.
believe we stopped, or we hadn't started before we were born in the first place. So on a more of a transcendent scale, we're eternal. So the physical experience is what we're losing. That's where the grief comes from. Because of the loss of something in person. And I remember, and this is my experience back when I've only had one dog in my life. And when I lost her, when she passed away, I was there when they put her down. It was a very humbling and a very powerful experience for me. It's probably the most potent, great experience I had, because I wasn't there when my parents passed away in person. I wasn't there when my grandmother passed away. I wasn't there, but I was there when my dog passed away, and it was at the vet. And the thing that made it even more special, and this is why I get this story, or say it this way, is because a dear friend of mine who I'd worked with over several years, who was a graduate of the same master's degree I went through, was an animal communicator. She still is. I'm not sure. I haven't seen her in years. But basically, she was, I would say, call her telepathic. She would actually be able to talk to animals like pets and give you answers back you didn't know. And she did it with my dog. So I knew she was honest because she said things that my dog knew that she didn't. And I was like, okay, there's something working here. So when my dog passed away, and there was a lot of serendipitous events happening that day, we were at the vet. And as they were about to give her the shot, my friend said to me, because she was with me, she said, my dog had a question for me. And I said, what's the question? She said, what did I learn from her? And I was in tears. It was like, oh, wow. And all the people in me, the doctor and the assistant and my friend, were all in tears. because I recognized at that point about the transcendent nature of life, because I really felt viscerally at that moment that my dog had been teaching me all the way through. And
Mm.
the gifts that she gave me still live inside of me. And I still, every so often I think of her because I form memories. I lost her 20 plus years ago, but she's still very present with me energetically. And that's what I
Uh-huh.
get grief process, is that it doesn't end when the body ends. I'm not saying that fixes anything, but for those people who think about it, our grief sometimes is that journey to move, to adjust from physical presence to spiritual presence, maybe.
I get it. I really love that example. Thank you for sharing that. It's a way also for us to realize that sometimes we feel like feel this need that we have to accomplish everything right now. I know that's me. And if I don't, it's like, what do they say? If we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years, something like that. Right. And it's really, or is it the other way around? I forget. No, I think it's that way. So I think it's true. It's knowing that I think we just find something that occurred to me. I wrote some notes this morning to create some content. And along these lines is that we oftentimes in a stage in life, we have so many things that we can do or that we feel like we want to accomplish, and we're running out of time. And I don't know if maybe this is just me, but I often feel overwhelmed, like I'm not going to get all this done. So I freeze and I don't do anything because it's just too much. There's too many choices, or there's so many things that we want to do. And I really encourage people to just pick one thing. When I work with my clients, it's pick one thing and let's focus on it for 3 months. It doesn't have to be the best choice. If we wait for that best choice and just for it to be just right and a sign from God or someone tells us this is your purpose, this is your thing, this is your next step, you must do this. Everyone wants that, right? But it doesn't come. I'll be honest, it doesn't come. And it does, you're lucky because it doesn't often come and with such clarity. And so we really sometimes just have to pick that thing and say, okay, I'm going to ride this horse for 6 months or a year and decide what it is. And then don't get to stay in that 10 and 2, the steering wheel. Remember, they said, hold your hands at the steering wheel, 10 and 2, and look straight ahead. Don't veer off and look at any shiny pennies or a squirrel chase like I love to do. Is, oh, today I'm going to start this. I'm going to write a speech. I'm going to create a new program. I'm going to, whatever it's going to be. I'm going to do a new class or whatever. And then the next day it's something else. And the next day it's a new thing. And I run that for a few weeks and I go, oh, I'm tired of that. Let me start something else. And I have all these broken projects on the side of the road that I never finish. And then I grieve the fact that I never did any of those things, or I feel guilty or feel bad and I shame myself for it. So it's really this whole thing of just getting clarity on one thing. And that's, I think, so important as we're going through the process of grief and loss. When I teach my program for divorced and widowed women and starting over, it's really getting clear on one thing and just sticking with it, because that gives us a sense of accomplishment and being proud of ourselves, no matter how small, is that then we can learn to trust ourselves again because we show up. We lose trust for ourselves when we don't finish things we start. All these dead projects on the side of the road, and they are numerous for me, more than most, I guarantee you. And if I see a notebook where I started something and I go, oh yeah, that's right, I was supposed to do that. I never did it. And there's another thing, and there's another thing. And before you know it, I feel like all these things I didn't do. And then starting something new just feels overwhelming because I got all these other things that I never did. And how am I going to follow? Jill, you really think you're going to follow through on this because you didn't do these other ones? So who are you kidding? And it happens that way. We actually create a pattern that we believe that we can't finish anything. And then we go, so why start anything? And the older we get, the harder it becomes to break that pattern or to feel confident enough to start something new. As a child, we open up something new. We go, oh my God, this is so amazing. I'm going to do this. And I'm so excited. I had those moments where I felt flat. Nothing excited me anymore because I was feeling like I just, there were so many things I didn't do. And or so many things that I just didn't trust myself to ever show up. And I'm going a little bit on a rant here, but I really want to share that because I think there are a lot of people in that space. And it's really just digging through that pile of maybe I started something and picking one of the things you absolutely love. And I'll dive deeper on it another time in another video, but is that running with it and then finishing it, getting excited. And even if it doesn't work out, it's noticing the steps in the journey along the way and being really happy about what we did do. So this is all grieving is this, it's not just relationships. It's not the obvious. It's those little things, ways we let ourselves down when no one's looking.
Yeah. And speaking of that for a second, again, recent article I wrote as well, is that there's a definite paradigm or relationship challenge we have with our own agreements. that when we do, like you're saying, we commit to things. And so I was talking about an article about, wrote an article about, are you trustworthy? And the key thing is that one of the things we forget to do is to really have dominion over our choices. And yes, finding something to do is a good thing to do, although it's just one of the first things you do when you're going through grief is to take care of yourself as a priority. Make that one of your goals, is to take care of yourself. So that's one thing. But the other part is when you do things out in the world, especially when it involves other people, we tend to say, yes, I'll do that. I'll be there. I'll complete this. I'll deliver this. And we don't. The other person may be upset, but inside of ourselves, we start chipping away at our own self-trust.
So true.
We don't believe what we said. Because we said we'd do something, we don't believe it. And so those scattered things in the roadways you saw, other people have some similar, maybe not as many as you say you have. I mean, you said there's so many, but the things we have, those are reminders that we don't trust ourselves. And so then how can we trust ourselves in relationship? How can we trust ourselves to keep our word? How can we trust ourselves to deliver? Because we've got so much evidence that we don't. So as you said, one thing that you love to do and do it starts to rebuild, because the thing is, it's easy to give up. It's so easy to give up. And grief can do that to us as well. But when you step forward and say, you know what, I'm going to take one of these things that's only a small thing, but I know it's something I want to do and I love doing it. And when you complete it, it starts to rebuild that trust again. So it's a process of really building up self-trust. And agreement keeping is one of these things I learned. It's actually, it's my sidebar. David Allen, who talks about getting things done. I worked with him years and years ago. He's had a book out for 30, 40 years. He talks about how this back in the day before we had smartphones, we used to have like day planners, physical books.
Yeah.
And he said he always write things down. So that notes, and someone said, do you write things down to remember them? He said, no, I write things down to forget them. Because when the out of my head's clear as to do other things. So by writing things down, I know they're there. I can not worry about them until they show up in my calendars. Oh, I need to do this now. But the smartphone is even easier because you can set alarms on your events. So when you have to do something, you look at your phone and it's, oh, I need to do that now. So you can forget whilst you're not doing it and be onto other things. The great thing is then is you start completing the things you need to do and you start keeping your agreements. Your self-trust increases automatically and you become more trustworthy.
Yes, exactly. And I do that too in Todoist in an app. And I created a program for clients to do this very thing because it's once we dump, like I have, let's see, I'll show you my list here. There's more. I'm just going to grab the first few I can. But these are like lists where I start writing sticky notes and things I need. And and they're everywhere. And then I go, okay, wait a minute. When I start to feel overwhelmed, like I know why, because I have sticky notes all over the place, notes I made somewhere. It's okay. This is top of mind. Like this has to be done today. This has to be done by the end of the week. And then I do a dump every once in a while. And I'll say, okay, take every sticky note. This is a project right here, and go through and I tier them, tier 1, 2, 3, 4. And I say, okay, tier 1, this is going to happen. And then I have something called icebox ideas, where it's just a section where it's nothing but, you know what, someday maybe I'd want to do this. Maybe I'd like to write a book. And someone told me, here's a book I should read to write about how to write a book. And then you put it over there and you can glance at it every once in a while, but it's out of your mind at that point. It's not rolling around in the head going, oh, I should do this. I should, we should all over ourselves. I love that phrase, is that we should do all these things. And it's not just stick it in an icebox and you can always open it up and look in there and go, oh, yeah, it's frozen. Okay, do I want to take that out and thaw it and use it? Or just leave it there for now. I know it's there if I need it. It's fine, but I won't forget it. And I love that tip. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And again, reinforcing it. One of the other challenges about grief as well is that we tend to shut down. So we may say yes to things that we don't follow through on. So one of the unfortunate things of grief is we don't, as I said earlier, take care of ourselves well enough. So we do end up breaking agreements with ourselves. And we do start lowering our self-trust. And when you lower self-trust, our self-esteem diminishes, our desire to take care of ourselves diminishes, all those things that would help us through the grief process dissipate. So my suggestion when you're going through grief is, first of all, don't make agreements. One of the best words I've ever heard is the word no. There's actually, I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, a fellow coach, and I said, no is a complete statement, a complete sentence. You don't explain it, just simply say no. So when things are offered to you that maybe you don't want to do because you're going through grief, but you feel like you should do it, if you say no, it's okay. But what happens is by saying no and you don't do it, you actually kept an agreement, because the agreement is a yes or a no. So when you say no, and you keep the agreement, you've honored that. So your self-trust increases.
Yep. Yes. I love that. It's like do a should check. Should I be doing it? If I hear myself saying should, it's going to inquiry, ask myself, wait a minute, should I be, or do I want to do that? Or is it should, or is it like, is there an obligation of an outside influence that's telling me I should, or where's that coming from that I'm saying should? And then it's that I've always done it, or everyone expects me. Do they expect me to do it? Or did I make that up? And if they expect me, is that realistic? Do I still, it's really just challenging and being aware of all the obligations and things that we think we should be doing. But that one thing, I agree with you on the no agreements in early stages of grief. I agree with that completely. And I think that to give ourselves some sense of moving forward, I think it's picking one. I have this technique that I use is picking that one small task, one small thing. It could be laundry, shower, something that in those early stages where we just can't move. Because I think as we go through these, if we don't have something where we feel like we're moving forward, we get stagnant and it gets that much harder to dig ourselves out of it.
I agree
Yeah,
with that.
laundry today. Boy, I tell you, that was great. Awesome. I haven't done the laundry in a week and I did it all today. That was great. And you feel good. And it sounds crazy to some people, but I'm telling you, when you're in the state of I can't even get up, or I'm up and I'm sitting around watching TV in my robe, yeah, sure. That's a win. A shower's a win. Let me tell you, I have had many wins with taking a shower going, yep, I actually took a damn shower today and dried my hair. Heck yeah. So yeah, I would say that. The other thing too, I think, is that I've noticed for myself is that when I go through this process of all these like dead projects on the side of the road and they start to stack, is that feeling of overwhelm and that lack of trust. If we get too deep in this, we are so deep into it, is that the numbing process is knowing our triggers, is that the coping mechanisms we use. And today there are more than ever. I will tell you the number one coping mechanism that exists, and we all know what it is this thing.
Yep.
And this thing will absolutely I always say if I had house arrest and I had to be in my house, as long as I had internet and a charger, I could live the rest of my life sitting on my phone all day and with food, and it'd be fine. And that's sad. And the reality is, I think many of us are doing that. I will call myself out, and I'm sure there are other people like me who have been there, is that when I am afraid to start something new, man, I will sit on that phone and find things I got to do. And I'll be just existing and putting out fires or just managing everyday life. Like, oh, okay, you know what? Someone's coming over today. So I guess to fix the refrigerator. All right, I got to get up and fit. Okay, at 3, they're coming at 4. At 3:45, oh shit, I got to put clothes on. Let me just brush my hair and teeth really fast. And then, it's like, it's just the bare minimum. And then we go back to numbing. And it's, oh, what's my favorite game of the day I'm going to play? And let me do that. And I'm telling you, time passes and then it gets that much harder. Then there's this anxiety when we actually do, I call it like performance anxiety. Was, okay, now we have to go and show up at an event, or we have to go to dinner with somebody, or the family event, or whatever it is. And it's so much more challenging because there's this anxiety that's building up because we are out of practice. And suddenly it seems like such a huge project that it wouldn't have been in the past because we've been doing so much isolating and numbing that these projects seem huge. That's why the shower and starting some small things and picking one can be really helpful to get going. And then it's if I want to create I don't know, if I'm wanting to do a website, whatever somebody's thing might be, is don't just say I'm going to build a website today. It's what's the first step? Chunk it out and pick one thing for it. Let me research some URLs, some names that might be available. What do I want to call it or whatever? And just finding those little steps. Because I think right now most of us are existing in life, doing the daily projects and the must-haves to get through life. Okay, I'm going to go on a trip. I have to go to Christmas with family or a holiday. I got to book a flight. All right, flight booked, done. Okay, that was the end of my day. All right, good. So what's on TV tonight and what do I have to make for dinner? That was the day. We got to create. We got to get back into creation instead of just existing. And that's really what I want viewers to think about today. And as we go.
Well, I just want to say too that, because I absolutely agree with you. And at the same time, because again, with some of the grief process is, first of all, what you did was important, is that you made agreements with yourself, not with anybody else. Because one of the challenges when we agree with other people, that's when we start feeling more pressure on us and we start to feel so happy when we don't do it. Make agreement with yourself, you got some flexibility there. And as you said, start small. I would also start numerically small too. So like the first time you start doing things after grief is in your life and you're dealing with it. It's just do one thing that day. And then maybe the second day you do 2 things and then 3 things. You build up to it. You don't start doing 10 things the first day because you won't do any of them.
Absolutely.
So having that willingness to do the one thing, and yes, it is something simple, doing the laundry, making something to eat, getting the delivery groceries even, just doing something that takes care of you. Because the thing about it also is during grief, one of the things we don't always do is take care of ourselves. So do things that are self-supportive things. So it is Even if it's just like jumping up and doing a tramp pad at home or doing some weights at home to get some exercise, to get some blood flowing. Walk around the apartment if you can't leave or don't want to leave. Do things that move your energy, move your body. But at least doing laundry, taking out the trash, things that you can have dominion over. Because when you have dominion over them, you don't need anybody else's permission. You do them for yourself. Those can be
Yes.
very cool and effective successes. You can record and make internally go, I did that. I won that one, so to speak. And it becomes a bit,
100%. 100%. And the other thing is, I'm the overachiever sometimes, or past overachiever, is this idea of, okay, I did one load of laundry. Why didn't you do it all? The voice that goes, you did one, but you could have done them all. Why didn't you do them all?
mhm.
And so we really, I think this is for some of us, if you're like me, maybe you need to do this too, is in the morning is just say one load of laundry and write it down. And then at the end of the day, go, check, one load of laundry. Woo, I did it. Okay. There's sometimes we want to accomplish things, but we don't ever feel a sense of satisfaction because we keep subconsciously raising the bar. And
So,
as soon as we do the one, we go, yeah, but you could have done. That's my voice. Maybe that's just me. I'm the only person on the planet, I don't think so, who does that. But it's that when we get really clear on what is the expectation for ourselves for the day. And then that way too, because sometimes I also am I have ADD, and they say, there's this comedian whose wife has ADD, and he makes me laugh so hard. He said, someone who has ADD has the ability to hyper focus and be easily distracted at the same time. Sounds crazy, but it's true. And
yeah.
so when I start a project and I go, okay, I'm just going to do one load of laundry, I'm just going to type this one memo. And next thing, 10 hours later, I haven't peed. I'm sitting there. I'm done all the letters I wanted to do because I get so hyper focused. And then I'm exhausted. And then 2 weeks go by because in my memory, I've trained my brain. If I sit down at that computer, I'm going to sit there for 10 hours. So that doesn't feel fun. So don't do that again. So it's like knowing when to shut it down and when to say, this is okay. I felt great for a moment. Whoa, I did so much, but I'm exhausted. And then the next day I feel like shit because I don't want to get out of bed. And I don't want, not literally, but I don't want to do anything because I overdid it the day before.
So,
And so it's moderation, right?
so yeah, two things. That one is moderation, absolutely. Two, because the thing as you said about that other voice. So little training tip I'll give out to anybody who's done it. I facilitate with my clients because it's not easy to do on your own necessarily. However, when you have a voice show up inside that doesn't agree with what you've said or gives you it's like the Charlie Brown adult voice, like just saying, you should have done this, should have done this sort of thing. That idea
Yeah.
is we often do is we start arguing with it versus having a dialogue with it. And
Oh,
so, I mean, this is something like my grad school was it's a blend for me of like NLP and Gestalt. So it's my own flavor of it. But what it basically meant was and this is something people have done before, but set up two chairs. You sit in one chair, you put the other voice, that critical voice, we say, in the other chair. And you basically start talking to it as if it's a person. And you can do it obviously in the privacy of your own home, but basically you can do it internally when you get really good at it when you're out in the world, but basically have a conversation with that voice. So you basically give that voice a space and you talk to it and basically you tell how you feel, what's going on, and you ask it what it's there, what its purpose is. And then the key thing is you switch seats and you become that voice. And so you let that voice have its reign to speak and say what it's going to say. And then, because basically that voice has said something, but behind it is some other thing. It may be the fact it's worried about you not taking care of yourself. It may be worried about you not achieving goals, but it didn't tell you that. It just simply said you didn't do enough, for
hmm
example. So then you get that voice starts to speak and you get more information. You go back to the first seat and you now got more response to work with. And the ultimate goal is having a level of agreement with that voice, not forced, but where you have an understanding between yourself and that voice inside. Because ultimately,
mm,
every voice inside is aligned to help us win. However, the way they do it may not be healthy.
yeah.
And so it's a whole philosophy. It's part of my work that I love because it helps people really navigate this process. If you want a fascinating read, there's a book called No Bad Parts it's No Bad Parts by Schwartz, his first name. He's a professor. Basically, it's about internal family systems. And what it teaches about is that we have voices inside, aspects of ourselves that govern our behaviors that are there to either protect us or to keep us to keep us safe from things.
hmm
Actually, another piece I'm missing in there, but I'm giving broad strokes. Basically, though, if you read the book or you listen to the audiobook, it's fascinating because it's really about how we have parts of ourselves that have our best interest at heart, but how they execute it, what they do to produce it, may be detrimental to our future. Because back when we did it, maybe when we were 5 years old, it was the best thing to do. As an adult now, we're still doing the same thing and it's not helping us anymore. So rather
hmm
than off, creating a conscious conversation with that part can be very powerful.
Yes. Yes, it's not avatars. What's it called when you have I know I learned this, gosh, when you have different parts of you. Can't think of the word, but I know what you're talking about right now. And you talk to the one who's wise, the one who's all, you have different names for, yeah, can't think of the word either.
But
But yeah,
basically,
that's
what's
so
it?
powerful to be able to do that too. And I love this. To me, it's the value in life is when we can get to the point where we can actually
Mhm.
observe ourselves. It's like seeing this. What am I? Oh, wow. What am I thinking right now? Where'd that come from? And really watching from an outsider's perspective how things are interacting and going on in our lives. And that's really a high level of emotional intelligence and the ability to have self awareness. And we can do that because that's how we heal. We can see that what's happening is, wow, I flew off the handle with that person. Where'd that come from? And then I wonder I was thinking when that happened, or what is going on where you feel like you need to get upset with yourself and judge yourself? What's going on? And then I like that where you said you sit on the other side and you go, okay, so what's happening here? What is it that you need to say or what? And so it's this no judgment. It's more of playing a therapist with yourself almost, right?
Yeah, but it's more about being listening and being really willing to hear, because
Oh,
oftentimes
okay.
the voices that we basically, because oftentimes that voice, sometimes that voice is not our own voice. It's like a parent's voice that's still in there from years and years ago. And when we start to really get that's what it is, we can say, hang on a second, that's not what I believe. That's what I've been told when I was younger. So what do I do
Mm-hmm.
with that? And to be compassionate with us is, because it's tempting to go, just shut it up and shut it down. But
Yeah,
there's something useful there. So don't give up on it.
I agree completely. I agree. Before we wrap up, I want to make sure we cover things because I know the thing that happens with us sometimes too in grief is what are some as we start to I want to close with the kind of focusing on relationships and because this is your area that you're so good at, unlike any other, and you're so unique here is in your style and approach with clients is when someone has a bad breakup and they're grieving oftentimes, especially in like I say, a narcissistic relationship where we talking about trust, we lose trust in our ability to, can I really find someone then? How do I know I'm even going to be able to do that again? Or am I going to keep attracting the same type of person? Is how can we stay open and keep our hearts open and willing and believe in ourselves enough to be able to find love after something happens, whether it's intentional or not intentional, like the loss is intentional because of a breakup or happens because of a death or something in that capacity.
The simplest piece, and this is where my focus has been shifting my work recently, is really about the self relationship. Because the challenge is that we feel like we're sometimes replacing what we lost with something else, but
Mhm.
we haven't looked inside. And I certainly in coaching, I've been saying a lot the last few years about how really what I do is help my clients become better partners to attract better partners. So it's an inside job. And so that desire after losing a partner or a partner dies to find a new partner is to start looking really inside first, because part of it is we want to be coming from a place of fullness rather than from need. Because oftentimes when we go through grief, it's like we want to be loved by somebody. We're going to chase somebody to find us. Someone's going to love us enough so we'll forget what happened in the past. That may be the best you can do in that moment. But the reality is we have resources inside ourselves we're not honoring and owning. So filling our own
Mhm.
battery first, filling our own cup of love first so we can then give it to somebody else and receive it from somebody else is ultimately the best way, because if you really want to move forward, you want to improve ideally your relationship experience and what you have. So
Yeah.
doing the inner work first so that you become a more whole, loving person yourself. So you become easier to love from the outside as well.
That's really good. That's really good. And I know in other videos you can refer back if I'll put links in at the end here and also at the bottom. But we talked about forgiveness and how important forgiveness is, and really just the idea of it's radical acceptance of things and being willing to move on versus,
Mhm.
like you said at the beginning, is this idea of just numbing it and time heals all wounds and then forgetting. And we never really go through the process. And then we're trying to fill empty gaps or holes that were never healed with a new relationship versus fixing it and then getting on and having a new opportunity.
That forgiveness piece for a second is such a key too, because oftentimes when we have lost somebody, because we don't anticipate they're going to go, so when they suddenly lose that person, a lot of times that not only is it unrequited things we wish we'd done or said or loved about them, but also the judgments we never fixed with them. The last time
Ooh.
we argued with them or something, or we yelled at them. So we carry that wound inside because we can't do anything about it. They're gone. We can't make peace. So you have to do the peace inside. So again, it's all back to being the work with yourself.
And I imagine that's something that you specialize in. I know you do with people who have had those moments where they don't have an opportunity to say what needed to be said And walking through that journey with your clients is so special because you can really help guide them so they can feel that sense of completion that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I encourage everyone to please check out the other 2 videos. And I also ask that you please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It means more than, and it really helps the channel grow. And we can get even more amazing speakers like Barry to join us. We have some amazing special guests coming up soon. I'm excited about that. I can't wait for you to share with you and for you to see. And again, share this with friends too, because there are others. This is your way of giving. This is a way of who can I help today? When you ask, who can I help today? Think of someone. Whenever you're watching this video or anyone else's videos, think about that. Who do I need to share this with? And there's always that sense of satisfaction. We know that we're giving and we're thinking outside of ourselves. And it takes a little bit of that grief. It heals a little bit of that grief along the way. So,
Absolutely.
well, Barry, thank you again. And I invite everyone to stay connected and be with each other. Just love, open your hearts to love and process. All right. Take care, everyone.